Hello everyone and welcome to my final video of 2021. Actually my final video this time. Probably, unless I decide to make something quick for the next week. But although it is absolutely 100% definitely maybe my last video of the year, it's not the last piece of content, as I'm planning on doing a long old stream tomorrow. If, like me, you don't really have plans for Christmas Day, then feel free to drop by the stream where I'll be playing various games, chatting with everyone, and likely getting drunk too. Anyway, enough about tomorrow, let's focus on today with my latest build, the Spell Knight. The main skills for the Spell Knight are one-handed, smithing, and heavy armour. One-handed deals out the major damage for the build. If an enemy gets within sword striking range, then you want to be able to take them down in as few hits as possible. In terms of perks, you'll want to max out Armsman, invest into Bladesman, and then start putting points into all the power attack perks. What you want is to deal as much damage as possible with a single power attack. Smithing is here to do the exact same thing it does every time, raising the numbers on your equipment. Invest up to Daedric Smithing and grab Arcane Blacksmith in order to improve all of your gear up to legendary quality. Once you have increased your gear as much as you can, do keep in mind that you'll be able to turn the skill legendary to recoup the perk points you spent. Although for me I ended up with more points than I needed, so I'd only recommend doing this if you wanted to add another skill to the character. Final main skill is Heavy Armour, and here the goal is to hit the armour cap of 567. In order to do this, you can go up the right hand side of a tree to Matching Set for the maximum boost. With how high the base armour rating of your gear is, you likely won't need all that many ranks of Juggernaut to reach the cap, maybe just 2 or 3. Onto minor skills now, where we have Destruction and Restoration. Destruction is our secondary damage skill, but requires only very minor perk point investment. I only went up to Adept Destruction and then left it at that. The spells we use aren't elemental, or runes, or dual casting, so there's really no need for anything other than reducing the casting cost. Finally, we have Restoration, where we focus on regen, both health and mana. I only focused on fast healing, so went up to Apprentice Restoration, and then got Regeneration and Recovery. These increase the effectiveness of healing spells and improve Magicka regen respectively. Due to your weapon enchantment and main spell effect, this skill isn't a priority, but it's always nice to invest a little in Restoration. When it came to the standing stone for this build, I decided to actually go for something other than the Lord or Atronach stone, and went with the Ritual stone this time around. This means we have the power to resurrect the dead once per day in an area of effect, which means you sometimes get several dead bodies helping you out. We also play as a Dark Elf, which gives the Ancestor's Wrath power, giving you a free Flame Cloak once a day too. When levelling as this character, I'd recommend a rough 70-30 split between Magicka and health. Early game, it's the most important to focus on that Magicka in order to get a decent pool with which to be able to cast your spells multiple times. Once you've got to that stage, you can then shift the focus more towards health in order to survive encounters easier. And a major player in surviving comes from the weapon for the build, Bloodthirst. This unique sword has high base damage, absorb health, causes bleeding, and apparently even increases speed a little bit. The absorb health effect is the big one for me, as I love getting back a little health after being hit in a fight. It helps no end with beating any opponent who's near an even fight in melee. As for armour, I went with the full Ebony Spell Knight armour, that being the armour, boots, gauntlets, and helmet. The version of this set you want to get is the non-cleansed variant you obtain through killing the ghost and looting the grave during the second part of the Crypt of the Heart quest, which I'll talk about later. For now, let's focus on the enchantments. The 4 pieces of armour provide 50 extra carry capacity, 70 more points of Magicka, reduce cost of destruction spells by 25%, and increase one-handed damage by 40%. While not the most focused set of enchantments, they do provide some solid across-the-board boosts to the character. To help further, I also went with a Goldur Amulet and Sovereign Band. Between them, these provide an extra 80 Magicka, 30 health and stamina, and 10% faster Magicka regen. While the focus is on magic, the boost to the other stats is a nice added bonus. If you wanted some further increases, you could also complete the Bitter Cup quest. On top of the Bitter Cup quest, you'll also have plenty of other quests that work well for the character, or in the case of the next two, are essential. Crypt of the Heart begins by reading a book of the same name inside of a Silverblood Inn at Markarth. After this, you'll need to follow a ghost about and kill some Forsworn before you end up with a corrupted human heart and arrive at a gravesite. When you get here, it is imperative to not cleanse the heart, and instead place the corrupted heart on the grave, otherwise you won't get the correct set of armour for this build. That's the quest for armour, but in order to get your weapon, you'll need to complete a Soul Divided, which begins in the Ratways in Riften. When working through this quest, you'll find a room with a skeleton that attacks you. There's a note to read in the room, starting a miscellaneous quest, which will lead you to Bloodthirst. On top of these two quests, just about anything that takes place on the island of Solstheim is a solid choice for the character. Personally, for this character, I went with no follower, but any Dunmer would suffice if you wanted some backup. There's a reasonable number of Dark Elf followers in the game, but the best by far would have to be Teldrin Serro, the mercenary you can pick up in the Winking Skeever at Ravenrock. He's a talented spellsword in his own right, and will summon a Flame Atronach to assist in combat. He is the best follower in the game. Fight me, also Farkas still sucks. This build plays as an aggressive spellsword. You'll be wanting to repeatedly cast the Hangman's Noose spell as your ranged magical attack. This spell absorbs 26 points of health per second for 3 seconds. This not only deals significant damage, but it also heals you back up, helping to keep you alive if you've taken some hits. If an enemy gets close, you'll want to start lashing out with power attacks with your sword in order to cut them down as quickly as possible. Both of your attacks will restore your health, granting you a good amount of sustainability in combat. However, any particularly high damage hits can still take you out fast, so do be wary of strong enemies, especially mages. I'd highly recommend doing the Book of Love quest for a little magic resistance if you end up struggling with mages, as there's no base magic resistance for the character. The Spell Knight spent several decades as a hired warrior for the standing army of House Sadras, one of the greater houses of Morrowind. She was trained well and taught to defend the higher members of the house against any range of threats, being able to slay her foes with either blade or spell. She was a powerful warrior, but one lacking any foes. The strength of House Sadras was well known, and that level of soft power meant that few would dare openly oppose them, especially in a military fashion. While a benefit for the house overall, it led to the Spell Knight becoming bored with her life. She had trained for most of her life in order to win any fight she may face, but there was no fighting once the training was done. Just years of standing guard, keeping an eye on political meetings, and escorting Sadras VIPs as they went about their duties. It may have been an important job, but it was not a desirable one, and her pride eventually took a stand. She left the house behind, along with Morrowind as a whole. She would head into the lands of men and search for more fulfilling work there. Due to her somewhat rebellious nature, and the fact she travelled alone, it was difficult to have most major organisations trust her word. However, plenty of individuals and smaller businesses often had work for a sellsword. While the pay was rarely all that much, it would sometimes result in combat, finally giving the Spell Knight a taste of what she had desired for so long. But it still wasn't enough. The lands of Cyrodiil were relatively calm. There would sometimes be a bandit ambush against merchants or a rogue beast in need of slaying, but more often than not, it would just be more intimidation work. It was time to find someone with more promise when it came to finding a worthy fight, and this is why she left for Skyrim. The Civil War had been spoken of in many inns, and the Dunmer warrior was well aware that the war would not only mean more fighting for the soldiers, but plenty of raids on farms, dangerous wildlife trespassing where they don't belong, and deserters desperate to escape. There would be more than enough work for a sellsword, and it would certainly be more exciting than anything she had dealt with so far. However, her journey into Skyrim did not get off to a great start. Some foolish Imperials assumed she was some kind of agent for their enemy, simply because they stumbled across her camp in the middle of the night. Her curses at their stupidity didn't seem to smooth things over, instead escalating the situation, and resulting in her being bound in chains and thrown on a cart. Once they arrived at their destination, she was going to make sure those men were flogged by their captain for such foolish behaviour. For now though, why not take advantage of a free ride to where she was already going? What could go wrong? And there we have it! Thank you all so much for watching another Skyrim anniversary build. While this is my final build of the year, I do have some more planned for the first month or two of the next year, so there's still more to look forward to. Additionally, there's the stream tomorrow, so if you do fancy just hanging out, then make sure to subscribe and click the notification bell, join the Discord, or follow me on Twitter in order to get notified when that goes live. Links are all in the description. As always, thanks for watching. Sarge out.